The monitoring plan. Here's a definition of monitoring. Monitoring is the collection of routine data that measures progress towards achieving project objectives. Another definition is always telling us that is tracking changes in project performance over time. And why we do it, why we need a monitoring plan. Monitoring also helps us understand that some stakeholders can make informed decisions regarding the effectiveness of the projects and efficient use of resources. Here are some benefits. We're ensuring planned results are achieved. This is important because we need to make sure that all our activities that we plan are achieving the intended results that we organize at the beginning. We also create a shared understanding about the project. We're generating new knowledge as we start building more experience that supports our learning process. We're also building the capacity of those involved. We're motivating stakeholders by letting them know the progress we're making. And importantly too, we're ensuring accountability, that we're providing the results for which the project was designed. There are 3 levels of monitoring that we have in our plan. Process monitoring. This relates to the lower levels, inputs and activities. Inputs are the funds and the time we use in the project, and the activities, all the activities that were designed by the project, and they're going to be consuming most of the day-to-day work the project does. Then we have objectives monitoring. That's when we start looking at the changes in terms of the number of outputs and outcomes the project is generating. And the last element in our monitoring planning also includes elements about the context. That is all the risks and the assumptions made at the project. So think about that the monitoring plan looks at these elements. The first element is the day-to-day activities, the work, the tasks that we do. The second element is that the results of those tasks, what is happening. And the third element is the context, the environment, what is happening around the project. And all of them provide us a set of information that help us know whether or not the project is having the results intended, or there are any challenges or issues that we need to look at and we have to make corrections. So the monitoring plan is a set of questions. Then we need to have a clear understanding of the answers and how we're going to manage that, what we're doing, why we're doing it, when we're doing it. That is our schedule, where we have our Gantt charts, where we are doing it in terms of the different locations that has a relationship with the logistics, how we're going to do it, what are the systems and tools and methods that we're going to use, and who will be responsible for that. So we use a simple matrix to help us organize all of that information. So our simple monitoring plan will include the first element, which is part of the log frame design. Here's the structure of the logical framework. Here's our theory of change, where we design in order to achieve the goals. We have a set of outcomes, outputs, and activities. Then we have our list of indicators for each one of those levels. And then the sources. Where is that information? It will tell us information about where that information is located at. And the type and collection method. That is another element that helps us understand the differences in how we're going to be collecting that information. Then we have frequency. How often? And this is a time factor that we include in our project monitoring plan. Different levels might have different frequencies. And the most important one for me here is the person responsible. We have to have a name, and this column that identifies the people or group of people responsible for each one of these levels. Let's look again at our levels. The final goal is our impact, which is the long-term development impact of the project. We have the outcomes or the purpose, which is the medium-term objectives that the project aims to achieve. We have the outputs, which are the tangible deliverables. And then we have activities, which are the actions that will deliver the results. Let's see that relationship again in terms of the volume. Our Input and process, which are the activities and resources, usually are at this level where we have a lot of activities happening at the project. Each one of those has a level of information, cost, timeliness that is important. Then we have our outputs, the direct result of those elements, and we were going to have certain data that we need to collect at that level. Then our outcomes, which is the effect of all that outputs, they're also going to be at that level. And finally, our goal indicators, which can be one or two. This graph also tells us the relationship that we will have in terms of the frequency, the effort, and the cost to do it. The higher we go in terms of the volume, the higher the cost we're going to have and the effort that we need. So it's important that our monitoring plan, even though it's going to be spending most of its time doing this, we don't just leave these other elements alone, that they are part of it, they have a name behind that, they have resources behind that, and that we have a schedule and we are able to then monitor those changes. Let's look now at sources. Is that where we're going to be finding the information that we need. We're going to have the primary sources, which are the sources that we can collect directly. These are the sources that the project would directly collect information for its own purpose. Secondary sources are information that was already collected by somebody else. It could be a partner or another organization that collected it for a different purpose that we can use. That helps us because we don't need to repeat that exercise. As long as we know that the information is good and it's has the quality data that we need, we can use that information, and it helps us in terms also saving some money and resources that we could use in something else. So it's important that you have a combination of both in your monitoring plan. Location also, it's important because it has a direct impact in terms of where is the information, because it will have indirect impact on the cost, on the logistics to get it. Ownership, if you're talking about secondary sources, and is the question is who owns that information and what it will take us to get it. How relevant is the information for our purpose? Is there any bias behind that ownership? Has the information collected has any type of opinions behind that? And how easy it is to get it? And reliability is something that we can collect it on a frequently basis. That if we know we need it every 2 months, it's something that we know that we're going to be able to get that information every 2 months, and that's going to be a situation where the information is not going to be available for us when we need it. Collection method is also part and has a direct influence also on the cost and the time. There are different collection methods. Each one can be used depending on the type of indicator you need collected, on the frequency and the cost and the purpose of it. We have surveys where we can collect information directly from participants that give us key points about how people are feeling or perceiving the project. Meetings with a group of peoples or interviews that try to relate more about how people feel about the project, what are their reactions to some of the changes and the activities they have. Focus groups also help us understand at a deeper level by having key questions and helping them go to the motions of the project and having them have a better understanding. And then records of information that were collected in other areas, and they also require a process for us to organize them. Frequency is another important element, depending again on the type of indicator. If you're collecting data on activities, maybe your information is going to be coming on a monthly because you need to report on your monthly reports, but your high level outputs or maybe the outcome or impact level could be on an annual level, part of your midterm evaluations or end of project evaluations. They also have an impact on the level of resources and cost that you're going to use in terms of frequency. You don't need to collect a lot of information if you know that the indicator is not going to make any changes. So the indicator is going to be a good source of information to let you know how often you want to collect it. And that way your indicator will tell it it's a monthly, quarterly, or semi-annually effort. Responsible, that's another important, is assigning to each one of these levels a person who will be responsible for the collection and analysis of the data. You can have a specialist on a specific field, your own project team, certain people might have the responsibilities, or hiring a consultant for a specific period of time. You can also include partners that are working with the organization that help you collect, and also beneficiaries is an important source of resources that you can use in the project. As long as they are trained on how to collect information, they can be valuable resources for collecting. In many projects, sometimes you train people in the community to collect the data because they will have a better access to their own community. It could even be about issues about culture, language, opportunity. They will be able to engage the different members of the community, and they collect information, and it could even be an opportunity for the organization to provide opportunities for the beneficiaries to participate in the project. The monitoring schedule, it's an element that you can add to your plan. You can create a simple timeline where in the timeline you can then start collecting information about the different sources of how the information is going to be happening. For example, for different outputs, you might have your bars that, like Gantt charts, tell you when the activities of collecting information are going to happen, when they will end. Even though you already have all the other elements identified, the timeline also is a good opportunity to distribute your resources in a more efficient manner, so that you know, according to your schedule, on your project schedule, when certain activities and when certain indicators need to be collected, and the people have a better understanding of when they need to start organizing their time and the resources to collect that information. The data collection plan is another element that it's important in terms of the volume of data. So you might include in your plan as a narrative element that about information about the type of systems of data collection, the processing, analysis, and the reporting. Depending on the volume of data, you might need to take considerations of using computer systems. If you have a large amounts of data, then using computers can help you make that process easier. If the amount of data is not that significant, then you can use simple software that can help you do that. The idea is that the amount of data and the process of collecting it will determine the level of technology and sophistication you need. Here are some basic principles important as you start thinking and developing your monitoring plan. The focus is on results and follow-up progress. So you're looking at see, has the project made any changes? Are these indicators telling me something that guides me to understand the project is making a progress? And if not, I can make the required changes on time. We also assume in the monitoring plan that there is a good design. The design of the project, the logic behind the cause and effect of the project is sound. Because if we find some problems there, your monitoring plan is only going to be reporting on those problems. So it's important that the design is assumed and there is a good analysis behind that. Take also into account regular visits and the validation of results. On maybe part of your quality management plan is to include certain points in your project, key milestones, where you go and you check that information yourself. Even though it might be reported by consultants or by partners or by even beneficiaries, it's important that you as a project manager have the opportunity to go to the field, look at the information, and try to get a sense, try to validate the results. Also, important regular analysis and reports, because not only for the donor or the organization, a lot of that information also needs to be used by the project itself to help you guide where the project is having challenges or where there are opportunities that the project can take advantage of. It is a participatory process that helps a lot in the process of collecting data. As in the previous slide, giving the beneficiaries the opportunity to collect some elements of the monitoring plan can help in building more ownership of the project results. Clear criteria for indicators. That is important that everybody in the team or the people responsible for collecting the data have an understanding of those indicators and what they mean. that the information we're collecting is relevant to the interventions we're making. If we're collecting an indicator that is not related to the project, you need to ask why we're collecting that data. What is the purpose of the data? And even that's a question when you start collecting a lot of indicators, you might start seeing that how each one of these indicators help me understand that the project is making a change. And lessons learned. The idea is that at every moment during the project, every time we're collecting data, it's an opportunity to learn and use that learning in our next cycle. Use that learning to improve the next process when we're collecting data in the project.